J.R. Dawson is a writer and educator with shorter works in places such as Fantasy and Science Fiction, the year's best science fiction, and Fantasy 2018, and Lightspeed. Living in Omaha with a loving spouse and 3 dogs, Dawson works with assorted nonprofits that bring performing arts to children in the Midwest. The first bright thing is her first novel. JR, over to you.
Thanks so much. I'm going to read the very beginning of this book. Chapter 1, The Ringmaster, 1926. The Spark Circus rolled into town on a Tuesday early in the morning. The well-worn train snuck onto the tracks right outside of town as the birds woke and the dawn broke through the sleepy shadows of trees cloaked in an early mist. Train spotters didn't notice the train's approach until it was nearly upon them, appearing in a blink and charging into town, the cars red and gold and blue with a name written along the side, Wendy Van Houten's Circus of the Fantasticals. The last 2 cars were purple and gold with flowers painted on their thick, sturdy wood siding, the windows laced with red curtains. Today, here in Des Moines, there had been tracks for the train to appear on. On other days in other towns, the train simply arrived in the middle of a field, with not a rail yard around for miles, like magic. But no, it was Sparks. The Circus of the Fantasticals worked on upfront deposits, meticulous yet flexible planning, and well-placed advertisements like all circuses. But something more than a seasonal schedule also drove this particular train. The Spark Circus always arrived at the right place at the right time, even if it was just for one person who needed to see their show that night. In a decade where the past was a nightmare and the future was a dream, the present was an unknown sort of way station where everyone seemed a little lost. Some would recall their visit to the Circus of the Fantasticals vividly as a pivot in their lives. Others would simply be inspired to do better or think differently, with no catalyst they could quite put their finger on, but would likely trace back to that one time they went to see the circus. Today, June 8th, 1926, was Des Moines, Iowa's turn. By the time the city awoke, the circus was set up in their rented plot near the tracks. Some townsfolk skipped work and most children ran from chores to watch on the plot's outskirts, while the Sparks emerged from the train cars to put up the big top and make the midway appear. One Spark changed into an animal, another multiplied themselves to get things done faster, while another lifted wagons above their head. The townsfolk might have been slightly afraid, but as the day got older and the posters went up all over town as they watched with growing fascination, they realized this might be their only chance to see something extraordinary, and so they went to the circus. The midway held the youth of smoky July evenings and the feeling of a young body rushing down a very steep hill. Something in the electric string lights hanging above the musical chime of carnival games and candy carts brought back a safe home that everyone seemed to remember but had never been able to find until tonight. There was a squeal and a small stampede of children dragging their mothers to follow them up a little wooden bridge. The bridge led to the sideshow, which was for everyone, not just gentlemen, and it wasn't a cheap exploitation. It may have only been made of plyboard and luminescent paint, but it still held something exciting in the way it invited the audience to run through it, to explore in their own way. Halfway through, giggling children bounced on a rubber bridge with just enough give, and their parents stood in awe inside a tunnel that looked like it spun through outer space. It was technology carved and moved by wooden gears, like something out of George Méliès's dreams. But the big top itself, the archetypal main event, was admittedly nothing special. In fact, it looked more beaten down than the other passing circuses the townspeople had seen before. The tent was tattered red and white canvas and muslin, thriftily yet expertly sewn together. The audience seats were only benches on bleachers set in a circle outside rings of flimsy painted sawdust curbs, with areas on the ground level for those who would have trouble climbing up the rickety steps. The floor was dust that was easy to traverse, but still coated boots and wheels and nice Sunday shoes all the same. The lights were too sharp, too few, and seemed mostly to spotlight just how dirty and ramshackle the inside of this big top was. It seemed to resemble a barn more than a theater, held together by spit and glue rather than nails. But that was just the pre-show. When the tent went to blackout, when the audience hushed and the spotlight clicked on, there in the halo of illumination stood the ringmaster. Commanding in a bright red velvet coat, the ringmaster looked out to the audience from the center of the large ring. Middle-aged and looking every bit a lioness, the ringmaster had a wild mane of golden brown hair that frizzed in the heat, didn't dry fast enough in the cold, and was somehow always getting in her white face, which was either sunburned with 1,000 freckles or as pale as a ghost in winter. She had black eyes, unheard of, that either glimmered with possibility or dulled with the density of a black hole. Some thought she was beautiful. Some thought she was brash, but it was undeniable that she would take them on an adventure. When she smiled, it seemed to the crowd like she was looking at the world for the first time, as if she had just caught her first glimpse of them, saw the brilliance of their hearts, and had known what great things they'd already done and would do. The smile was a genuine embrace, the first bright thing in this dark, dusty place. "Welcome," she said to every single person in the audience. "Welcome home." Thank you.